Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey and as always I'm joined by Sam Proof. Today on the show we're going to be talking about different approaches to going live. And obviously there are a million different ways of doing anything, and technology has a tendency of sort of giving us exponential possibilities, and in some ways that can be amazing, but in other ways that can be quite overwhelming and kind of annoying if we're being honest. So we're going to unpack some of those. We're going to look at the Rode video device, which is a shiny new bit of gear from Rode, which is beautiful, and we had a very specific question about it, but we are going out live to all the various places. I don't know how well this is going to work, but let's give it a go. If you are watching live, you can do that hashtag team live thing that I like so much, or if you're watching later on, you can do hashtag team replay. But Sam, how are you going? How's your week been? How are all the things?
Yeah, I'm going okay. It's been both a busy and not so busy. Like, I'm not working, so like I'm just keeping myself busy at this point. It's been an interesting week to say the least. Looking forward to the weekend. And yeah, that's pretty much it. How's things with you?
Yeah, not too bad. I must admit, I never feel like I'm making any progress in life or in content creation ever. And I kind of got this email from YouTube that was like, you had 60 new subscribers last month and people listened to you for like 273 hours. And I'm like, what on earth is going on? When did that happen?
Yeah. What's along those lines, what's really funny is I just got an email from LiveJournal that said I got a new award and I'm a discussion maker on a journal I have not done anything with in at least 15 years. So
yeah, I get those emails that are like, you know, your LiveJournal is old enough to vote and congratulations.
Yeah. Not to downplay the YouTube thing. That is an accomplishment for sure.
Yes. Hello to Saeed, who's joining us where it's after midnight in Germany. Saeed, can you let me know in the chat if our audio is okay? Because we are doing this in Restream Studio, just something different. And I must admit, it's been a long while since I played with Restream Studio. And the thing that I got really used to in StreamYard was having to press that go live button twice, and I assumed it would be the same here. And the minute I did it, we were live, and I was like, "Oh crap, we better start the show." So that's a fascinating development. So we'll just go from there, and we'll see what's happening. But great to have your company. I know it's very, very, very late, and I don't envy Saeed's sleep schedule at all. But let's get stuck into today's content. Let's talk about the Rode video, because I must admit, this is such a beautiful device. And I was ready to just give them my money and move on with my life. Let me show you this thing. It is a thing of beauty. So this is the Rodecaster video, or the Rode video, depending on who you talk to. No, so officially it is the Rodecaster video. Okay, that's good to know. All right, essentially here you'll see that we have a whole bunch of, at the top, we have a whole bunch of different inputs on this device. And we've actually got 4 HDMI inputs. We've got a number of USB. We've got a couple of XLR for audio devices. And I should say the USB are often used to support sort of both supported webcams, but also supported USB microphones. So that's another possibility as well. Okay, so it's saying the audio is great, so that's awesome. So this is kind of amazing, and I guess the other thing I want to draw your attention to is it's kind of, we can set up different scenes, we can have a lot of different video switching all in this device, and it's kind of amazing. Although I will say the question we got from Alec during the week, or on my YouTube channel, on one of our shows, was how you might like to use this with OBS Studio. And here's kind of the thing. And I wasn't sure about this myself, and I must say in full disclosure, I don't have one of these devices. Sam and I aren't popular enough to be on the list to receive these free trial things that everybody else in the world seems to. But, you know, the question was really about, can we bring this into OBS? And the answer is yes, but you can only bring in, and let me show you the thing that Rode told me during the week. So this is from Rode on Twitter. They say, with the Rodecaster video, you will only gain access to the main program feed when going into OBS. And the program feed is potentially really cool, but I was kind of hoping that I would be able to bring in all those video inputs as separate video capture devices in OBS, and apparently that's just not possible.
Yeah, it seems similar to the Blackmagic ATEM, which, as far as I know, that is exactly what it does as well. They want you to use their own software, or in this case, just the hardware itself to run stuff. I don't know if it has associated software or if it's just running out. There's got to be something. But yeah, with like the ATEM, you're just taking a program feed and putting that into your OBS and going from there, which always annoyed me when I was doing a setup like that, because now I'm finagling two different, hardware solutions to like, make things happen.
And I guess, like, in some ways, that's the broader point. You need to almost go on a history lesson because when the Rodecaster Pro, which is sort of their podcasting device, first came out, I think the thing they envisioned was that people would just sit around a table, hit the record button, produce their podcast in real time, play some jingles and some music, and then just export it automatically. And that is the thing about this device that is kind of cool, is that you can run it without a computer. You can literally run this without a computer. So once you've set it up, once you've got all your settings into play, it literally has an Ethernet port. It has Wi-Fi too, which is kind of mind-boggling. I don't know that I would necessarily want to run my stream on Wi-Fi, but again, you may have much better internet connection than I do, so that might be a possibility. So in some ways, I think my advice for this is if you want to run it exclusively from this device, it does give you a lot of control in the software for setting up different scenes, and you can have picture within picture, and you can have lower thirds and change the colors and the fonts and all the different things. So you can run it exclusively from here. So that can be really cool. But I think what it's not designed for is sort of doing a little bit in the Rodecaster video and a little bit in software. And I think the only thing that I still have a question mark around is how do you actually wrangle comments with this thing? Because I don't know that it interfaces with that stuff.
That's what I was going to say, is that most likely, the thing that this is missing is being able to put some sort of browser source on top of the feed, which is where you would want OBS. So that, with that knowledge, like, this might be a good solve for multicasters who actually want to do different feeds, where like maybe you have a primary feed that's going out to like a Twitch or a YouTube channel, and you're only really dealing with that community, but you also want to put out like a clean version without that overlay to different, streaming sites, or even just to record locally, that sort of thing. So yeah, that was the thought I had was, yeah, you're going to miss out on having overlays most likely.
And it can't like, and I guess it's specifically the chat overlays that I'm wondering about, because you can upload media, you can play audio and music, and videos. So if you've got promos to play in between segments or whatever, that's not a problem. But it is that's the one question mark I have around this. And I did a bit of research, but again, this is very new, so people are still sort of putting it through its paces.
Right.
So Saeed writes, you could set up a scene with the Rode thingy as a camera source and easily switch between your face and desk. Though honestly, you could do the same with just OBS.
Right.
And I think in some ways that's, you have to take stock of what you currently have access to, because if you do start working through a device like that, and you've got Stream Decks and things, they're kind of out of the question unless you're sort of doing extra things on top of that program output. So it depends on probably where you are in your journey. I mean, the one thing that it does do, which is kind of really cool, and I'd be really curious to see if Saeed can think of a way that this might actually happen. And I'm sure there probably is a way, maybe with advanced scene switcher or something. But one of the features it does have is that you can link audio to a specific scene and it'll sort of toggle between live speakers. So that, and I think that's like a Zoom feature, a standard Zoom feature. But I've seen so many people in the Facebook groups asking for that sort of thing. So it would be really, really interesting.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it looks like a great piece of tech. I think it has a very specific user in mind, and it's, someone who doesn't necessarily have a streaming computer already set up and working, and probably leans in closer to the more, let's say, traditional podcast set, if you will, and then I would think almost the live stream element is just by the way, you can also do this, like, sort of a bonus.
And And I must admit, I think if you go to the Rode website, like they do have a lot of imagery and stuff. And I think it's that classic thing. If you're doing a stream in person, if you've got a couple of people around a table or you know, on a couch or something, that is really beautiful. And I guess the other thing is this thing is quite portable. So once you've set it up,
Right.
you can throw it into a backpack. I guess the thing that's in the back of my head though is it's one thing for the switcher and the interface to be portable, but like boom arms and tripods and
Right.
stuff, like it's I kind of wonder where the point of diminishing returns is with all of that stuff. But I
Yeah.
must say I do love Rode as a company. They are an Australian company despite the vaguely German sounding or spelling of that name. And again, I've always wondered about that. I need to ask somebody about that. But anyway, so I mean, I think it's a thing of beauty. I love the idea of it. Once I found out that I couldn't sort of get those inputs in individually into OBS, I thought no, this probably isn't for me.
Yeah, that's basically my thought process. Not really for me, but I think there's definitely, you know, people out there who this would solve problems for if they don't already have an existing streaming setup. I could see this being something that like a, you know, like a radio station uses where they just already have just so much limited space to add like a desktop streaming computer into the mix would be, you know, a lot. But to put this in, yeah.
Absolutely. And again, like Said makes this great point, like for a 7-camera setup and 2 XLR mics may be worth the money. And that's the thing. What do you already have? If you don't have anything, like if you've got cameras and mics and nothing else, like this is potentially a really good way of getting started, I'd suggest. I must admit, it doesn't do 4K, which some people have feelings about. I wouldn't personally lose a lot of sleep over that, but some people... we know people that are definitely like, you know, they won't get out of bed for less than 4K resolution to watch anything. So, and the other point that Said makes here is to quote Kat, and forgive me, I'm not going to try and pronounce Kat's surname, but she's very popular on YouTube, so I'm sure you can find out which problem does it solve for you. So it's that gear acquisition syndrome. I must admit, I think gear is really fun, and if you can afford it, I think it's really really fun. And say it's fact checking me in real time. So the O with the slash in the middle of it in Rode is apparently Scandinavian, not German. Which,
But really, if you go far enough back in history, aren't those really the same? Close. I mean, like, there's a lot of exchange there, you know, like.
That's a whole other show, though.
Anyway, that's definitely a different show. What was the price point on the Videocaster?
So again, it depends on where you are in the world. I hear a lot of Americans say it's sort of $1,200 USD. In Australia, it's sort of closer to 2,000.
That's a bit much.
Which, you know, it's definitely an investment. But I think if you are the person that would kind of work in that fashion, I think, especially if you were using it for business purposes, it would probably pay for itself pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same price as a PC at that point, so I think that's a decision that you really need to make carefully.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I mean, like I said, I have nothing against it, but I get the specific use case we were asked about was using it in OBS, and the kind of thing is, at the end of the day, you only get the program output, you get nothing else. So, and I kind of like the granularity, and I'm kind of a software guy anyway. I mean, outside of physically pressing buttons on the Stream Deck, I tend to want to use software solutions for most of the things I do. So it's just a different way of working. And again, that's kind of the thing I want to emphasize about today's show. There are no right or wrong ways of working. It's what's going to work for you. So we're going to come back and talk about some of the software-based or the browser-based options in terms of actually going live. So we'll do that in just a second. This is the video and live streaming show. Thank you for joining us.
Our cats, every interaction that we have with them. So when Johan would get on my counter before, you know, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a promo for Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn about more over at cuteavalanche.com. This is the video and live streaming show. Today we're talking about different ways of going live and streaming in terms of hardware and software and different devices. Good morning to Ender Trading, who's in Bangkok at the moment. Great to have your company. I know it's very, very early in the morning for you. Hello to Gabe Liao, who's joining us as well, who writes New Phone, who dis. Yeah, so there's another thing. I guess before we move on to the next segment, Saeed's got a point here, and I think it's very valid. I think there will be firmware updates in the future that will add new features, just like they did with the other Roadcasters. And I guess the thing is, Rode are very good about thinking about their broader product ecosphere. So their wireless devices connect to this really easily, for example. So if you've got the wireless mics and the lapel things, and like they're a very thoughtful company. They have thought a lot of this stuff through. It's just that one mildly annoying thing for me is that I really would have loved to have those separate imports.
I mean,
but
it's
maybe
thing. If enough people ask for it, they will be able to add it. You know, I also would only want that if I was able to get the ISOs into OBS as individual cameras.
Absolutely. Okay, so we spoke about the Rodecaster video, which is again is a beautiful thing. I've got nothing against it. I just wish I had that extra little bit of functionality. But that said, you know, let's talk about actually some of the browser-based options. And again, we're using one of them today. We're in Restream Studio. And I must admit, as a bit of an OBS control freak, I'm missing my OBS layer today, but we did want to try this for a couple of different reasons. I guess, first of all, when those promos play, Sam will actually hear them now, which is exciting. Although I have to tell you, he rips his headphones off every time I play a video of him speaking. I don't know what that's about, but
it's
and
really
I guess
usually just time for me to like get some it's just too noise canceling for me, and I just need a little breath of fresh air on my ears.
Sure.
Or I don't want to hear my own voice, which is also a thing.
And I guess the other thing too, like we have been using Video Ninja to bring Sam into the stream, and I just for the life of me, and Saeed's tried to connect me to some resources. I just can't seem to get the quality right for him yet. So something we're going to keep working on. But today we are using Restream Studio, and we used to recommend StreamYard or Restream Studio for absolute beginners. I'm not loving StreamYard lately. They have been purchased by a different company, and I think they're just
sucking it.
They're just it's not going to end well. And
I'll
I see a
burn
lot
the
of
bridge.
people.
Yeah.
Gabe is the life of the party as always. He's asking if we've tried Ecamm yet. We haven't, and well, I haven't. I won't speak for Sam. We'll talk about Ecamm and OBS in the next segment. It's an option. It's a good option,
It's
but
Mac
you do
only,
need a
though,
Mac,
right?
and I currently don't
we're
own
not-
one of those.
Neither of us are on Macs. But yeah.
And again, I don't know how serious this comment is, but I'll put it up anyway. Gabe
seen
also
the
writes, my cat Mittens wants to start a cat video podcast. What advice would you give a newbie podcaster like Mittens? And I feel like Gabe is joking, and maybe Gabe doesn't know Sam
don't think
enough,
this is
but
anything to be
he
joking
literally
about.
was running a 24/7 cat stream for like, I don't know, 10 years?
7 years.
7 years.
7 years. Almost 8. Yeah, this is not a joke. Don't try and joke about this. Yeah, you're not going to actually do that, though. Not with the cat as the host. It would be the world's shortest podcast. Also, you would have to call it a podcast, so I'm sorry you've been disqualified already.
Yes. And, you know, to know Sam is to hear a lot of cat puns. But anyway, let's leave that to one side and get back to our topic, though. So I guess the thing about these browser-based options is they are relatively straightforward. They're very user-friendly. They're good for beginners. You know, you can invite a number of different guests, and I think a lot of these plans have like up to 10 different guests on a screen, or 9 probably in some cases. But how do you feel about these kinds of software? And I get the feeling this is not usually the way you would work, Sam.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that I would default to working in OBS no matter what. And, you know, I would use video for my guests and stuff. But if we're talking about, you know, the browser-based softwares like StreamYard and Restream, they do a great job of what they do. You know, they really make it tremendously easy to just start out of the box with whatever stream kind of concept you have, whether that's bringing in multiple guests or being a solo streamer with, you know, like a clip show kind of concept, whatever it is. Like, the tools are there if you're willing to pay for the service. But yeah, you know, aside from what those price points are, I don't actually have any problems with the software that those companies create. And those are just the, you know, two examples. There's tons of other ones. There's Be Live, and I believe OneStream has a studio app now, and I'm sure there's a dozen that we don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there are hundreds. I guess the one that I keep forgetting about is actually and Streamlabs. They actually have a subscription
Sort of.
where they have a whole bunch of things, and one of them I think is called Streamlabs Studio, which I think used to be called Talk something else. I don't really know off the top of my head. It is interesting because it's one of those ones that every now and then I'll be reminded it exists, and I'll look at it and go, that might be potentially interesting. And it's like all of $19 per month, I think, USD for that one. So
yeah, I mean, the Streamlabs software is built on OBS Studio, which OBS is an open source software, and they just kind of like took it upon themselves to like make their own version of it that then has a like a paywall on top of it for apps and stuff. You can use the software itself for free. They do have a subscription service to increase functionality. But my experiences with it were it was a CPU hog, and like OBS was way better.
And I should say too, like the Streamlabs desktop app is actually free to use, but also they do also have their Talk Studio Pro, which is kind of more of a Restream Studio, you know, StreamYard type experience. So, and I'm sure it used to be called something else, and they purchased it and all of the things. But anyway, again, we can't escape the cat puns. Saeed writes, you will need some Elgato gear for a cat podcast. Of course you will. And we're not sponsored by them, but hey, if you are from Elgato, please get in touch. Rich and Gabe writes, Restream has made some nice improvements as far as browser-based interfaces for streaming.
Yeah.
It has got this new version, like this second version of Restream Studio, which I don't think Sam's seeing a lot of because he's brought in today as a guest. And they have introduced things like countdown timers and the ability to change fonts and different things like that. I do, as a bit of a control freak, I do find it a little bit frustrating that a lot of the times if you've got multiple guests, they kind of just default to whatever part of the screen the software wants them to default. And like so like if I turn like Sam's camera on and off for a second, like it will sort of go away, and then you know, it may or may not be in the same place, and we may move to a different layout automatically, which in some ways can be useful, but a lot of the times I just like I don't want to move until I'm ready to move. So there's a bit of a trade-off there as well. And this is definitely a literally true thing. So it used to be called Streamlabs OBS, or SLOBS for short. Saeed is mentioning too that there are things like Prism Live, Camo, which I struggle with the name of, just to name a few of the alternatives. So there are lots of them out there. I guess the big thing is a lot of these have free options, so you can have a play with them. Just figure out if they're going to actually work for you or not. I don't want to talk about StreamYard too much because it elevates my blood pressure in a way it was previously reserved for just AI, generative AI nonsense. But I think it's important just to give you the heads up. It has been bought by a different company. The prices have gone up quite dramatically. There have been job losses. I don't think you're going to have a good long-term experience if you hang around there. So I'm just putting that out there. All right. Hello to our good friend Business Growth Ready. Cat podcast, you'll still need a scratch audio a track if recording outside a blimp windshield on microphone, not the dead cat. So there are so many cat jokes in that one sentence, I don't even know where to start. Wow. But hilariously, because Rode is an Australian company, instead of the dead cat, or maybe as well as, they have what they call a dead wombat, which is basically just a furry covering for a boom mic. In fact, this might be a little triggering for some of you. But yeah, they've got dead wombat, dead cat, dead kitten, dead cat go, dead cat VMPR, and dead cat VMP plus. So yes, I didn't do a lot of boom stuff, but that is a thing that does exist in the world. So I guess in terms of features and workflows, since that's what we're talking about today, like the things that I tend to look out for is the ability to take sort of isolated recordings, because that is one thing that's really important to me.
Yeah.
I like the ability to sort of, repurpose clips. And I think the thing I'm seeing in the world a lot is people want to use things like Opus Pro to generate short clips, but they'll do it from a horizontal video, and it just always looks weird. Like they always just squish it in somehow.
Yeah.
And like it's not designed for that. Whereas if you had the video of Sam, the video of me, you could rearrange those on a canvas and then export that, and then potentially even put it into Opus if you were so inclined. But that's the thing I'm looking for. I guess the other thing is just how many destinations can you go out to? What are those destinations? Because it seems like during the week, some people tried to use Streamlabs Talk Studio to go live on LinkedIn, and it just wouldn't have a bar of it. So I don't know if that was a glitch or if that is just a reality of that particular piece of software. But again, with live, you've got to test all this stuff out. You've got to give it a go.
Yeah. I mean,
got any other thoughts on that, Sam?
Platforms are always updating, and software always updates. And a lot of times those updates, need time in between when one company does it. If a platform updates and you're a software company, it's going to take X amount of time to make that thing happen if they haven't given you advance notice on it. So like there are times where that kind of issue is going to, happen, and things will break. But also, just you should have a pre-test day, like in an ideal world, everyone the day before a stream would do a test stream for an hour and be like, okay, this is going to work, to hopefully mitigate those kind of issues. Not always, but hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, there are two things to note about that. First of all, test everything, have backup plans. Yeah. But secondly, you do need to accept that life happens and stuff will go wrong, and things will go wrong, and the world won't, like the sky won't fall in on you, and it'll be okay. And you have to do really atrocious, be a terrible human being to be quote unquote cancelled or whatever. Right. Saeed does say that my mic sounds much better. I guess the reason, and I'll only mention it to this audience because you guys are geeky and will appreciate this, because I'm coming to you via Restream Studio, I've got a stereo output from the Rodecaster Pro. And the thing that I normally do is I actually normally just don't have any processing turned on at all. And today I've actually just enabled the compressor. The problem I'm having, and I don't think you guys are hearing it, but I can definitely hear it, is that I hear a lot of my fan noise from my computer in a way that's almost louder than Sam's volume when he's speaking, which is kind of difficult for me to listen intently right now. So I don't know what that's about. And maybe I'm sort of threatening to reorganize my desk, which I've been threatening for years at this point, but I might actually do it shortly. And I think I might physically move the computer a little bit further away, because I think that might help as well. But anyway, I do appreciate that feedback, Sadie. That's great. So I guess as a control freak, I normally like to not have any processing. And then if I'm repurposing the video, that's when I sort of go in and do a bit of compression and stuff like that. But yeah, thanks for the feedback, Sadie. That's really great. All right, let's go. And we'll talk about some of those standalone apps, dare I say, the eCams, although we won't have a lot to say about those because we don't have a lot of experience about those, but OBS in particular. So we'll come back and talk about that in just a second. And in Build a Presentation Muscle, I want to talk about finding your voice, refining and sharing your message, using tools and technology to share that message, and looking after yourself as a creator. And that's a promo for my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, the podcast about showcasing your expertise through content creation, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. So this is the video and live streaming show. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're starting at a slightly different time because of the joy of daylight savings and time zones across the world. So we do appreciate that you've accommodated us with that as well. So today we're talking about all the different ways that you could potentially go live. And it is one of those things that there are all kinds of options. You kind of need to think about what is appropriate for you. What are your goals? What are you hoping to achieve? What are your outcomes and outputs? And I like to think of it in terms of deliverables. So what does a good show or a good live stream or a good presentation actually look like? What will you be happy with? Because like we said earlier, everything can go wrong. Literally everything all the time can go wrong. So that's, you know, you've got to roll with those punches a little bit. And as a control freak, it's often really tempting for me to just take everything offline and just edit everything within an inch of its life and then publish it, which in some ways I feel like is probably rewarded by YouTube. Like I need to do more video on demand content over there, but I just love the feedback of the live stream. All right, so we're going to talk about all the different options. Well, I say all, some of the different options. Conceptually, the option to use some standalone software. And I'll just read this comment from Gabe, and I'd love to hear some of Sam's thoughts because he's been in this space for a really long time too. So Gabe writes, I used to use OBS, StreamYard, Restream, Streamlabs, OBS, Wave, BeLive, and by far, in my opinion, Ecamm is heads and shoulders as far as paid options. Just my thoughts. Okay.
I mean, I've used most of those except Wave, and my experience with Ecamm is about 5 minutes worth of Ecamm when I was working at MobCrush, and we were at a convention, and somebody asked if they could use Ecamm with MobCrush, so I literally was like, I don't know, show me Ecamm, and we sat down with it, and I brought it up and put it in through the MobCrush system, and it worked. So really, I have a vague, faint memory of it, but I always gravitate back to OBS. It does everything I want and more, and it's free. And I don't have problems with it, where I know a lot of people can see it as this big intimidating thing. I think it's just super awesome with its ability to create productions that are just way beyond anything any of the other softwares create.
Like Seed has a take on this too. So nothing wrong with Ecamm. It's like a Coke versus Pepsi question, except if Coke only worked on a Mac.
Right.
Oh, Seed, you crack me up. And I just want to go on record. I honestly believe it's awesome software. I think it's wonderful. I just don't own a Mac, and I'm really unlikely to own a Mac. And I know it's built on Apple technology. They've been very explicit that they're never going to port it to anything else.
Right.
So, I mean, in some ways, you know, it's great. And if you use it and you love it, then by all means, keep loving it and using it. You're in good company. There are so many people out there that use it. I was just curious about how it worked. And a part of me was debating getting like a Mac Mini to add to my desk setup and just try it out and see how it went. And I thought, I don't know if I really want to spend a few $1,000s on a new computer in an ecosphere I don't really want to be in to start with.
Right.
And potentially pay in the region of, I think it was like $50 per month for the rest of time to use that software. But again, that's just my personal preference.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Seems like a lot just to test something out. Yeah.
I mean, really, what I should do is find a local friend that has a Mac and you know, visit them and try it out over there. But I don't know. Like, it's great. But again, I think the thing about OBS, and we love OBS, and that's clearly our bias, so let's just wear it on our sleeves, is that it's very modular. So in some ways, you do need to think about how you're going to achieve different results. And the thing about Ecamm is that it kind of does have that guesting experience built in at the, believe it's the pro level. So again, it's a different price point. There are two different versions of Ecamm that you can subscribe to, is my understanding of that. And that's sort of built in a way that it isn't an OBS. And we've kind of already alluded to the fact that we've been playing with Video Ninja, and it's worked up until to a point. And again, it has a lot of settings and a lot of things that we can still dig into to try and sort that out. But again, I just love the fact, and I guess in some ways it's just informed by my experience as a poor student who then went on to teach poor students, is that I just think open source software is kind of a miracle. The fact that people are devoting their time and energy to doing that thing and sharing it with the world for free is just amazing. And we want to applaud those people all the time. But that said, like, there are potential hazards there. Like, sometimes you will come to rely on a plugin and it'll just break everything, and you'll have to make a conscious decision to take that out of your workflow. So,
yeah.
Okay. Gabe's saying that he bought a Mac Mini M1 for $250 and it worked lovely. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, it's one of those things. As a geeky, nerdy person that just likes to play with things, I want to try all the technology, but I also want to kind of be a little bit responsible, and I do like embracing constraints to some extent. So I don't really, because I'll probably reach a point where I'll be like, oh, I have 4 different computers to stream on with 6 different cameras and 17 different pieces of software, and it'll be like, no, just pick one, stick with it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's definitely a point where you need to be like, yeah, I mean, that's a good test and all, but I'm going back to whatever this one was. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so again, like, and I just want to be really clear, like, Ecamm's wonderful, and if you use it, if it works for you, great. And it clearly works for Gabe. He loves it. I haven't actually, like, I know Gabe's been going live and doing sort of a lunchtime thing. Unfortunately, through the joy of time zones, I'm completely asleep when that's happening, but I might go and watch one of the recordings to see what you're up to and how that's working, because I think it's really cool. So he also writes, my only rub with any of these streaming services, none of them work well with LinkedIn, so they all suck for my needs. It's just my life.
I mean, that's on LinkedIn, I think.
A lot of that
it's
is,
all on
yeah.
their end. I never stream to LinkedIn because everything John tells me makes me just not want to try.
And the thing I didn't really appreciate was that it's kind of in LinkedIn's terms and services that you can only stream to one profile or company page at a time. And that's kind of the reason that Sam gets locked out of this, because I invariably set mine up before he has a chance. And I can appreciate that, because, I mean, obviously LinkedIn don't want like 50 versions of the same video sitting on their servers, but it is interesting. And I guess I know a lot of people that are professional LinkedIn trainers, and you know, they're very invested in that platform, and the rumor mill is rife with all these new exciting video features. And I'm like, let me know when they arrive. I'll test them out then. But I'm just not going to hold my breath, because LinkedIn has a funny habit of introducing things and then taking them away like a week later. So,
yeah.
Okay, so Business Growth Ready writes, Ecamm is nice if you like an easy UI, plus think business owner, as it has Zoom built in. If you have a Windows, vMix is your answer, or OBS if you like baking real cakes, not a ready mix pack. Okay, yeah, I think that's fair.
vMix is great, which we haven't really talked about vMix. The cool thing about vMix is that it is cloud-based, and you can have like an entire team of people working on your production through vMix, whereas OBS is very much like you're in one place, and most likely you're the only person running the OBS experience. So yeah, that is a big difference there, of course.
Absolutely. vMix is one of those things that I haven't really played with. And again, I don't know if I've been hanging out with Sam too much, but I look at the price page and go, no, I'm good.
It's definitely a
I've been totally
option,
spoiled by free software.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's potentially another great option. The other thing too, again, if you're a Mac user, the CEO of something called Mimo Live often hits me up on LinkedIn to remind me that his software is available, and every time I just remind him I don't own a Mac. So you could potentially check that out. I don't know what it's like, to be honest, but it's another thing. Said writes that LinkedIn is the problem, and again, for legal reasons, I'm going to say the following is a direct quote from Said, the facilitator. He writes, "LinkedIn is the MySpace of platforms when it comes to streams."
I'm gonna agree to that, but I'm not sure that's the comparison I would make.
Okay. So Gabe writes, for a company that actually invites streamers to use third-party software, they make it difficult to want to stream there, but I guess I like to have a difficult life.
Right. Yeah,
that is
I
the
agree
thing.
with wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So, and again, because our audience is kind of nerdy, I'm happy to tell you about this, but there is actually a page buried so far deep in LinkedIn that you need the direct URL to get there that will give you like a stream key. But at the moment, and again, this is the thing that all the LinkedIn people are really excited about is potentially, and again, it's only a rumor at this point, so don't get too excited, but potentially at some point there'll just be a go live button and you can just do it all through the browser or through the app. So that's another thing there as well. Okay, I don't know. Sam, you've got a comment from somewhere.
Yeah, so this is from one of my platforms that unfortunately isn't in our feed, but Angel over on Beam, which is what I use to multicast to my side of things, asks what do I think of Beam, which I believe Angel might be the CEO over there or something pretty high up. But yeah, I really like Beam. Beam, it's not quite on topic for what we're talking about. I think they do have a studio side to their software that could be used directly for broadcast. I use OBS to go to Beam, and then Beam goes to multicast to all of the platforms that I want. It's been super easy to set up. They have this great sort of, they are a paid service for the multicasting, but they also have a built-in sponsorship side of things that will mitigate that cost if you opt into it, and then it just runs ads on their side, which is, I think, great. If you're, already set up to stream with whatever your software is, and you're just looking to multicast, and you're like, well, I don't really need to pay for a StreamYard or a Restream. I don't need all of these other features. I just want to do the multicasting. Then Beam is an awesome option for that.
Absolutely. And Beam is something Sam's been talking about a little bit lately. I haven't had a chance to really play with it yet. I do look forward to having an opportunity to do that at some point in the near future. So that's really good. Said asks a great question. Are any of you using NDI? So NDI is something I've never really used. And I know it's industry industry technology. Like people in the real world are using this really well. Sometimes the wireless stuff makes me nervous because I just worry that I'll run into a position where the signal gets lost. But it's not something I played with. And again, I'm kind of one guy in front of a computer with one microphone and one video camera, so I don't really need that kind of functionality. But again, Sam, have you ever delved into the world of NDI?
It's been a long time, like a decade maybe, but yeah, a while back I did some shows for Legendary, and we used Skype to do NDI in. They had an actual Skype NDI box, so it was like a hardware solution, but you can also do the same thing with OBS and Skype itself using an NDI plugin. And it's it's pretty good as far as an option for getting like guests in. These days, just because I forgot that was even a thing, I opt into doing like VDO to get those in. But yeah, I mean, it might be something that we actually play around with to see if that's a better solution for us.
Well, I do remember we actually played with that via Skype a number of years ago, and it basically worked. I don't know that the Skype quality was that crash hot, but
That
I mean,
could also
it
be
was
an issue.
definitely a thing, and I guess it is interesting. And I'd love to hear from like professionals that use it every day. And I don't know that that's anyone in our audience right now, but maybe we could find somebody and ask them all those questions in the future. That would be exciting. Gabe does write that he's not a gamer, so he doesn't see a use for NDI. I'm not really a gamer either, and I guess the thing is, like, in some ways. And we probably need to do a whole show on NDI, but again, we probably need a guest because neither of us know that much about it. But it is, like, it is very serious industry technology. So, like, people are using it to cross to people via the news and talk shows and stuff. Like, it is definitely a thing that's being used very, very well out in the wild. So, but again, I think for most of us as single streamers, as long as we've got our things connected to our computer, we're pretty much good to go.
Yeah.
Gabe writes too that I've used vMix and I agree that it has a lot of functionality. Well, that's cool. All right, so let's go and we'll come back and we'll talk about probably my least favorite, but I felt like we needed to cover it. Going live via your phone. So we'll do that in just a second. This is the video and live streaming show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
A live stream or optimizing your YouTube channel, get in touch with me. I can help you get set up with live streaming, operate your stream, strategize your YouTube channel, and so much more. Hit me up at samproof.tv, and I'll talk to you soon.
And if you do need help with those live production services, definitely reach out to Sam. You can learn more about him over at samproof.tv. Business Growth Ready does say that he played with NDI on OBS and then tested OBS Teleport. Somebody was asking me about that years ago, and I mean, it may have, I don't remember who it was, and I was like, I've never heard of Teleport, but apparently it's a thing.
I was like, wait, what? I don't know that one.
Yep. And in some ways, I feel like that underscores the larger point about today's show is once you find what works for you, you don't need to necessarily play with all of the things or try all of the things, unless that's something that's of interest to you. So Saeed does also write, I played with it a while back, screen sharing and using my notebook's camera on my main PC, but it was just for fun and tinkering. Okay. So Saeed is sort of noting that there is potentially a little bit of there's definitely a delay between me pressing buttons in Restream and things happening. And I think ultimately this is probably not the place we will continue to do this show. But right now this is sort of an interim measure for us. And I really love the OBS integration. I guess we need to either figure out the video settings or potentially use something else. There is Garen Parkins sort of recommended a thing called ping.gg to bring in sort of external guests. And it is a paid product, and I'm going to say it's not particularly cheap, but apparently it will bring in very high quality guest video. So I don't know. I might even have a bit of a play with that moving forward in the future. But, you know, there are all kinds of options out there, and there are all kinds of trade-offs. But yes, thank you, Gabe, for getting me back onto topic. So why does John hate going live on a phone? I am curious. I guess there are two things for me. One is vanity. I don't know what it is, but my Sony ZV-E10 makes me look so much better than I do even in real life. And my phone is so disrespectfully capturing me the way I am. So that's already kind of vexing. But I guess the other thing for me is just that... well, I say the other thing. There's probably another two things. Secondly, audio quality on my phone is not that great. And I have actually, we've done shows on this in the past, but I did buy the Rode NTG video mic. The video mic NTG, I think it's called. And that's great, but only certain pieces of software on an Android phone will use an external microphone. It's really irritating. And I kind of, at that time, I really loved the idea of going live via Instagram as another version of this stream. And there are other ways of achieving that. But to use the built-in audio, the built-in video app on an Android device is to invariably get just the standard inbuilt audio, which I kind of hate. I really dislike it with a passion. So that's annoying. But the other thing too is, and we kind of alluded to it a little bit in the NDI discussion, is that wireless stuff makes me nervous anyway. And if I have to rely on the Wi-Fi, if I move a little bit, if I lose signal for a moment, it can get very glitchy very, very quickly. So those are the reasons I don't particularly love it. But that said, it is a really easy way of starting. So if you do have an app, and Instagram is potentially a great place to start depending on the type of content you have, you can just press a couple of buttons and go live and just talk to the phone. And I guess in some ways, that can, a lot of the streams I see, especially on TikTok, there is no content. Like it's purely social, and it's usually just someone saying hello to anybody that enters the chat, which is fine, but it's not my personal interest area.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking at desktop versus mobile app, that kind of thing, it really depends on what is the goal of your stream and or show itself if the end goal isn't actually the stream and is more like a VOD scenario, which at that point you have to wonder why you're streaming in the first place if the end goal is the more polished product. But yeah, if you want to do a show like we're kind of doing, or something with a lot more browser overlays and things like that, it's really hard to pull that off on the phone. It's not impossible, it's just harder to do. And even to have, you know, just more than one scene can be a bit of a bear on a mobile app, especially if you can't do that with the platform apps. So your Instagram and your TikTok, you have to have another solution for that. So it really just comes down to what you're looking to do for that stream. And yeah, I 99% of the time will opt for a desktop wired in solution. But occasionally it's fun to just be like, hey, I'm in the middle of Hollywood right now. Let's go live and walk and do touristy stuff and share that with the people. And damn the Wi-Fi. If I lose my connection, I lose my connection, such as whatever, you know.
And I guess, like, conceptually, that's probably a difference, because on Instagram, if you don't see it live, you're probably not seeing it at all. So in that sense, when it's of the moment and it's only of the moment and there's no recording that's going to live on forever, you can do whatever you like, and it's not usually a big deal. So I guess I just want to say, so Saeed writes, have you tried the Blackmagic camera app? It's free and comes with an overwhelming amount of settings, perfect for geeks and control freaks. I haven't actually tried that one. The one I actually do really like, though, in part because it does record external audio, is it's actually from Shure. So they've got a Motive, and it's Motive as in the word motive without an E on the end, video app. And it's really great. It also has a whole bunch of settings, but for me, the big one is just the ability to select that external microphone. Again, I'm sensing a bit of a theme here, but Gabe is doing another ad for Apple. The iPhone 16 camera with the lapel mic works awesomely. And I have a Rode lapel mic with the iPhone, and that works well as well. I guess the other thing too, which is really, and I haven't shown you this because it's on a different computer, which I very rarely use, but I do actually have the Rode USB, Rode PodMic USB, I think is the proper name of that one. And it's great because it has XLR and USB connections. And I have actually just connected that straight up to my phone, and that's been really effective. And I do know people that record podcasts directly on their phone. And that's one of those USB microphones can make a world of difference, but you just need to make sure the app you're using supports them. Okay. There is another app, and I'm looking madly on my phone to see if I can remember what it's called. Somebody actually reached out to me on LinkedIn, and they were like, I'm from this company, I have this app. And it's Sam sort of alluded to the fact that most phone streaming is just straight up whatever your camera sees. And this particular app, and for the life of me, I can't think of what it's called, and it may not be installed on this phone anymore, but it literally gave you the ability to change scenes and do different layouts and play recorded videos and stuff from your phone.
Nice.
So that was pretty nifty as well. And Say just notes that the Blackmagic camera app is not actually for streaming, but I heard good things for recording videos. Yeah.
Okay. I think Sling Studio does what you're saying, but I don't know if it does it just on a phone. I know they have like an iPad version, but they also have like a hardware suite. So like you create sort of Wi-Fi connections to cameras and other stuff like that to bring in different feeds. And we use that a bunch of times at Mob Crush, and it does a pretty good job. Though I think we were still using OBS in that setup somehow, and I don't remember how that all worked anymore.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find the name of that app because I didn't think it was a bad one, but again, those same concerns I have about the Wi-Fi streaming live on in my mind. And I think the other thing about this particular app was the idea was basically get rid of your cameras, get rid of your computers, and stream from phones and tablets essentially. So, and I don't. For the life of me, there are a couple of buttons in Restream Studio that should make my screen larger, but they're actually obscured by some other things because of where I've actually got them, which is really kind of frustrating. In fact, there we go. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to press a few buttons. This may or may not work very well, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. So this is actually just this is my live streaming newsletter from a really long time ago, and we were sort of talking about these things, and I did. You know, this is my old teleprompter, so that'll give you some sense of how old this is because I'm using a different one these days. The other thing too is I've tried different rigs with my phones and they've been really fun, but again, I don't love the quality of them. I've played with ring lights. This one actually has two holders for two different phones, and that was actually historically the way most vertical streams happened when we first started doing this, because you would have one with the camera and one with the chat facing in the opposite directions to each other. So, you know, the destinations, and I this actually isn't the particular one that explains sort of, you know, that other app that I was playing with, but I just wanted to show that briefly. So we will do that. I will turn that off and I will minimize that as well.
Did anybody else attempt to click on the LinkedIn notifications just to make them go away? Just me? Okay, never mind.
Okay, I actually resized my window in Restream to get that to happen, and for a moment the entire chat disappeared on me and I was freaking out. So, okay. You know, there are always trade-offs and tricks with all of these things. So, I have a weird feeling I may have lost some of the chat. So if you've said something in the last couple of minutes, feel free to write it again. But yeah, so I mean, again, I think it can be very authentic. I think is the buzzword people are using on LinkedIn these days, to just grab your phone, hold it in front of yourself and talk to it. And again, I love the idea. And even in that that holiday streaming episode we did, one of Sam's suggestions was like literally just open your phone, go look at the lovely displays of lights and decorations and stuff. I guess in some ways you might want to be a little conscious of what you're sharing in terms of, you know, identifying where in the world you are, just in case you have some stalkers or whatever.
Go to other people's neighborhoods.
Yes. But, you know, that's definitely an option. And again, just because it's not my favorite way of working doesn't mean you shouldn't give it a go if that's something of interest to you. So I guess as we start to wrap up, Sam, where can people learn more about you and what's your content and all that good stuff?
Yeah, head over to samproof.tv. Oh, we don't have the screen because we're on... Oh, there, we do have the screen. Head over to samproof.tv. You can find all my social links at the top left. And if we didn't get enough cat action for you today, aside from this one that's crossing the screen in just a second, go over to cuteavalanche.com and you can get all the cats you could ever want in 24/7 live stream.
I was so distracted by the real cat that I forgot to press the button, but there you go. You can go over to cuteavalanche.com. I feel like I'll get in trouble now if I turn off your portion of the screen to show this, because people are here for cats more than anything. But if you do want to check out what I'm up to, you can head over to johnlacey.com. I've got the podcast and articles and social links on the bottom of those pages as well. Find me on YouTube and LinkedIn as particularly the places I like to hang out. I will say too, tomorrow, roughly the same time as this show started, I'm going to do a coffee and content stream, which I haven't done in a million years. And the thing I'm doing is I'm trying to teach myself DaVinci Resolve, and especially that Fusion tab, because I really want to make some stream assets, like things that'll pop up and banners and stingers and that kind of thing. So if you do want to check that out, I can head over to the Learn Live Streaming channel on YouTube, or find the link in there. Subscribe and hit the bell. I'd love to have your company there. Saeed does make a very good point here. So is OBS 31.0 out? Just seeing that it might be very close to release at least. I don't think it's officially out just yet, although maybe I should bring up that website as we mention it. I know there are lots of features that people are very excited about, and I think if you do, you can sort of go in and download the developer pre-releases and all that stuff. But at the moment, it looks like we're not quite on 31 on the website, so that's still to come. But it sounds like there are some exciting features there, so that will be really interesting to see. And Ender says, I think it's a winner then. I'm not really sure exactly what that's in relation to, maybe the new version of OBS. But anyway, thank you so much for your company today. Again, it's been a little different for me running the show in this way. I'm not sure how we'll do it next week, but roughly the same time. So just check out those invites wherever you happen to be watching this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Again, thank you for all your support, and we'll be back and talking to you again in the very near future. But until then, have a great week, have a great weekend, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.